The genesis of the Radiators occurred in 1978 when 5 young friends from 2 different bands decided to head out to the lakefront for a jam session.
3 of us were in one band, 2 of us were in another band. Me and Reggie were in Road Apple. Camille and Ed and Frank were in the Rhapsodizers, and we were both kind of looking for something new, and Ed suggested we get together at his place, which was on Waldo Drive, a garage, and ended up playing together 6 or 7 hours that day and had a ball.
And it was like we had been together forever, you know, it was just everybody gelled well together.
We just felt like we were open enough to let everything that was inside come out. Nobody was like restricting each other's feelings.
The question I had to get answered was, can we work together? We could play together, could we work together? And I had a song that my current band, the Rhapsodizers, I had no confidence that they could handle, called Red Dress. And we got together and rehearsed it, and it was miraculous. Dave came up with this, sort of fortifying, centralizing riff that held the whole thing together, and we took off.
The newly formed Radiators soon took over a Wednesday night gig at a pizza joint called Luigi's.
That was like our rehearsals for pay, very little pay. And that's where we fleshed out new songs, and our fan base grew from that, and they encouraged us to do whatever the hell we wanted to do, however we wanted to do it, and anything we tried, they were fine with.
They would do the same song 5 times in a row. They didn't care, and the audience didn't care, and it really didn't matter.
The Radiators began playing in other clubs, and fish head culture was spreading around the city.
The Radiators really had their own culture. It wasn't, like a Meters or a Neville's that was doing all New Orleans songs. They were taking old blues. I mean, Eddie would take Blind Willie Johnson, Light at the White House, and put it into a band format that nobody would do. They'd do an old Stone song, and the heart of what they did was all their original songs.
I mean, what other band could play a medley with Elvis Costello, Michael Jackson, and Frank Zappa?
They could do Oop Oop a Doo, but it was not like Jesse Hill. It was going to be a different thing, because these were guys who had listened to Jimi Hendrix, to the Doors, to whatever, they're just different players.
As the popularity grew, so did the venues, and soon the Radiators became the designated band of Mom's Ball.
Mom's Ball was put together by a bunch of derelicts who had been affiliated with Luigi's on the Dream Palace, and one of the prime people was Wesley Schmidt. Great guy, complete knucklehead. It was anything goes times a million, worse than Luigi's. But more importantly to me, there was always a theme every year. And Ed would write a new song that we wouldn't necessarily, we learned it as we were playing it, for that year's Mom's Ball. So that's why it's special to me. Other than that, it was the most kick-ass parties ever.
It started off at a DAV hall with maybe 1,000 people, and wound up at Blaine Kern's Mardi Gras World on the West Bank with 5,000 people.
The downside is that the Radiators ruined Mom's Ball, and because it became the best Radiator gig of the year.
The gigs continued to pour in, and eventually the Radiators were offered the coveted closing set of Jazz Fest.
This is your brain on the Radiators. This is your brain on the Radiators at Jazz Fest. And the 2 cultures just went together. They're people that love their music, or people that are of Jazz Fest, and it just works.
Getting up there and seeing like 30, 40,000 people out in the audience, and it was really great.
The Radiators' popularity grew beyond the borders of Louisiana, and in 1987, they signed with Epic Records. They would record 3 albums and shoot 2 music videos with the label.
After our 3 albums, Kaplan said we could record another studio album for Epic. And their complete disregard for promoting the third album, which we thought was our best one. You know, spending 2 months of your life working on a project and then knowing that no one's going to hear it, it's just going to be shelved. We felt better just to move on.
The Radiators continued to tour successfully with the support of fishhead crews around the country.
They started popping up in all these little cities where they could go knowing that there was 1 or 2 people who were making sure that 500 people came out.
That's been very gratifying because that makes the road feel like you got family in all these places, you know. So that's really what kept us going after Epic, and that made it all a very livable, more healthy way of being a rock and roll road warrior.
After traveling to more than 400 cities and playing almost 5,000 shows over a 33-year period, this road warrior decided 2011 would be his last encore.
I felt like I would have a little more magic in my life by just, you know, staying back in New Orleans and working on stuff and archiving stuff at home rather than playing all the time. But it was very difficult to articulate that decision to the rest of the guys because I felt like I was leaving the family, and I was also I couldn't help but feel like I was letting not only them but a lot of fans down.
The Radiators, I mean, they opened up the door for so many people to so many different styles of music, from old blues to New Orleans R&B to country to classic rock.
The Radiators affected people as much or more than the culture, because they were this sort of spirit ride within the songs that they were playing. There was like a sum that was greater than the parts, and people flocked to it. And they wanted to have that experience, that Radiators experience. They wanted to go for that ride.
It was about the music and the friendship and the fans. You know, it all comes back to that again.
So we just did things on our own terms and felt very fortunate to be able to do this and make a living at it and have a hell of a lot of fun.
It was quite a trip, quite a trip. It was something most people just dream about, you know, and I got to experience. So I feel like I'm a really lucky guy.